Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 30th of March 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So for those of you who don't know, I actually am a co-founder of EthHub, and each week we also put out a newsletter and a weekly podcast as well. So you can go to ethub.substack.com here and kind of like view the newsletter, and what this will give you is basically a weekly recap on everything that happened within Ethereum. So maybe you don't have time to kind of like tune into the refuel every day, or you just want like a recap at the end of the week, because you know there are some things that I won't talk about on the refuel that will make it into the newsletter. You know, basically goes over the news, the project updates, down here, some interesting tweets, and then a bunch of like blog posts and podcasts and things like that, and you know, memes of the week and stuff like that as well. So yeah, if you aren't subscribed to this yet, definitely go check it out and subscribe if you're interested in just, you know, I guess like keeping up even more with Ethereum than you already are. I mean, it is basically more than a full-time job right now for more than one person. So yeah, definitely go check that out. But I'll end my little shill there for now. So I think the biggest news of the last 24 hours, and we already knew this was coming, but essentially PayPal will be announcing kind of later today that, later today. It's Tuesday for me today, but Tuesday for the US just started. So, they're going to be allowing US consumers to use crypto to pay at millions of, merchants globally here. Now, the cryptos that they're supporting, initially are, everyone's fan favorites, Bitcoin, Ether, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin. And I say everyone's fan favorites, but really it's only Bitcoin and Ether. I don't know how many people actually want to spend or use these other kind of things here. And it's funny they have a picture of Ripple in the in the header here. But I mean, this is quite fun, right? This is quite fun to see. The market seems to be reacting to this right now. I was just looking at the charts before, and things seem to be moving on up on this news, which, I mean, off the back of the Visa news yesterday as well, is pretty cool. But there is a major drawback here for people in the US and, using their crypto as money. As far as the tax law is concerned, if you kind of dispose of your cryptocurrency for anything, so if you use it as money, if you dispose of it for another asset, or if you dispose of it for fiat, that is a capital gains tax event. So essentially you have to pay capital gains tax on, it's a capital gains tax event. And if you made money, you have to pay tax. If you lost money, you have to write off that, on your tax filing, which is like going to severely limit this, I think. I mean, I can't imagine people wanting to incur tax liabilities, using their crypto to purchase things. So I'm not sure kind of what the uptake's going to be here on this and how many people are actually going to use it. A lot of, I guess, like crypto in general, is not suited for payments, I guess. Like, I mean, I do say ETH is money, but I've never said ETH is good money. Obviously, the volatility of these things means that you don't essentially want to hold it as like money, but you do want to hold it for the potential upside. So a lot of people obviously have these assets, but what I'm more interested about is, I guess, PayPal adding support for stablecoins. That's like the logical next step here, because obviously a lot of people want to use kind of USDC. I think they would support USDC to start. I mean, maybe they'll support DAI. I don't think that they'll support DAI right off the bat because of its decentralized and kind of opaque nature, but USDC definitely, and other kind of like US domiciled stablecoins like GUSD and stuff like that, I could see them supporting that, and it makes a lot more sense for them to do that. I don't know if the tax law is going to change in the US here, when it's going to change. Obviously, it's a very like silly law. I think in Australia we don't have this. If you actually do use your asset as kind of money, I don't think it incurs a taxable event, which is pretty positive. I don't know what it's like for the rest of the world, but yeah, the US seems very restrictive here. So we'll have to kind of keep tabs on that, see how it goes. But while that kind of, I guess, like tax law is in place, I just don't see much uptick here, unless people just aren't aware of it and, they just use it as money. And then, at the end of the tax year, they basically get stung with this bill, or, they didn't even know they owed, sort of thing, when they're doing their taxes. So we'll see. But overall, bullish news, I guess. Just another company adopting, I guess, like not just Ethereum, but just crypto in general, like another traditional finance company, right? We've seen like, obviously Visa, and there's like a bunch of others, companies putting BTC on their balance sheets, companies putting ETH on their balance sheets. Technically PayPal and Visa have ETH on their balance sheet now, right? If we're going on technicalities, obviously they haven't bought it as part of their kind of like treasury, but it's still going to be on there. So that was pretty cool to see as well. So yeah, big news, markets reacting positively. Kind of feels like there's a lot of positive news just coming out over the last few days, that the market seems to really love. So, and I guess like the macro environment's still quite stale in terms of like the stock market and things like that. But we'll see how it goes. I remain bullish, of course. Maybe we'll see a new ETH all-time high sooner rather than later, hopefully. But yeah, obviously, like, we're all going to be keeping tabs on that. I reckon each and every one of you watching or listening right now is the same as me. We check the price of ETH, at least, at the very least once a day, if not like, tens of times a day, right? I have the chart up all the time, just watching what the price is doing. Don't trade on it, but obviously we're all just addicted to watching those kind of, price movements, I guess. So some big news from Dharma today. So with the Dharma app, you can now cheaply deposit up to $25,000 of fiat a week into supported apps Aave, Compound, Yearn, and Uniswap directly from your bank account instantly. And this is available to, I guess, like US users. I don't know if it's available to people outside the US, but definitely within the US here. This is crazy. I mean, this is skipping, I guess, like all of the onboarding and going directly into DeFi. So normally when you want to go into DeFi, you have to go through, like from fiat, you basically have to go through either very expensive kind of onboarding from various different, I guess, like wallets out there or like services out there, or you have to go through a centralized exchange like Coinbase, for example, deposit, maybe buy some stable coins, buy some ETH, whatever you want to do. I mean, you have to, if you don't have any ETH, you have to buy ETH to pay the gas fees. But then, you go and you withdraw it to your wallet from the exchange, you wait for that to process, then you can go into DeFi. Now, what Dharma is kind of promising here is that, yeah, you'll be able to deposit $25,000 per week instantly from your bank account into these supported apps here, which is, quite crazy. I mean, the integration that I actually think is probably the I guess most exciting here is going straight into Yearn vaults, right? Because, Yearn vaults obviously are very optimized for stablecoin farming and stablecoin yield farming. So imagine being able to put, I mean, obviously, most people aren't going to put $25,000 a week into this kind of thing, but imagine being able to put, just maybe $200-$300 of your kind of paycheck in each week, and that's like your savings account. So instead of your savings account being in, I guess, like just a normal bank account that's paying you basically nothing in interest, you can basically deposit it instantly into a Yearn vault using the Dharma app. So I think that was the most exciting feature release here. Obviously, there's others like Compound and Uniswap and what was the other one? Aave as well. But I mean, Aave, Compound aren't going to pay you very much on your stable coins, just your vanilla stable coins. They're not for that. But, and then going into Uniswap, I guess, like, depositing stablecoins in the Uniswap, you could become an LP. That's still very risky. So that's why I kind of think that Yearn is the best use case here. Yield farming in general, or like, savings accounts on kind of DeFi in general are the best use case of these fiat onboarding kind of tools here. So yeah, really cool to see this from Dharma. I'm sure they're not done here. I'm sure they're going to be adding more DeFi apps here. They're going to basically be your home for like DeFi within their mobile app here. And if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely go, I guess, like, check it out, download it if on your phone and things like that. And one other thing that they kind of mentioned here was their dharmaOS, which is an open SDK. Now, what SDK stands for, stands for Software Development Kit, which basically means that devs can kind of use this to basically connect any Ethereum protocol action to Dharma on their on and off ramp as well. So, they're describing it as if Coinbase had a Stripe-like API and an app store built into it. So it's basically invite only right now. Still in alpha, but this is really, really cool. I mean, Coinbase, I think, is going to do this as well. I mean, if they don't, they'll be left behind here, or maybe they'll just acquire Dharma or something like that. But I mean, I've had this kind of thesis for a while that, plenty of these kind of like, I'm not calling Dharma centralized, but plenty of these kind of like centralized solutions like Coinbase and things like that are going to build interfaces and build on-ramps into DeFi from the old world, and they're going to capture a lot of market share. I do think that, I mean, Dharma's been around for a while, they've pivoted a few times, but I do think this is an important area to be in, because this is giving users kind of like, I guess, exactly what they want. And at the end of the day, a lot of new users simply just want, I guess, like yield on their stable coins. Not everyone wants to have 100% of their net worth in ETH. I mean, not everyone's me. I don't know, I don't have 100% of my net worth in ETH, but, not everyone wants to have a large chunk of it in ETH there, or in any kind of like volatile asset. So, and people like to do a split. Maybe you're like 20% stable coins, 80% volatile crypto, like even if you're in the crypto ecosystem. And those stable coins you don't want just sitting in your wallet, right? You want then kind of like yield farming. And then, maybe if you've got kind of like dollars in your bank account, definitely don't want that sitting there earning nothing and kind of just like, I guess, being stuck in the old system. You want, unless you need it for something, some kind of purchase, whatever, you want it earning some yield. So yeah, really, really cool release from Dharma here today. Go check it out if you haven't already. So interesting tweet from Eric here today. So he basically said, this time next year, Ethereum will have proof of stake finalizing the chain, aka the ETH1 to ETH2 merger, fee burn with EIP 1559, approximately net zero issuance with fee burn coupled with proof of stake issuance, and full layer 2 scalability. And then he goes on to say, have you adjusted your portfolio accordingly? Now, I know I'm still majority kind of ETH here, but this goes back to what I was saying yesterday about kind of like, imagine ETH 2 years ago and then imagine ETH 2 years from now sort of thing. And I think this is very important because this is not 2 years from now. This is like this time next year. So basically March, I guess, 30th of next year, right? Or March 29th of next year, whatever. I don't know about proof of stake finalizing the chain as like a given because the merger could get delayed for whatever reason. But I do think that, there's a high chance it goes live in Q1 of next year. So we could have the merger done. Obviously, 1559 is going to be live in July. With the merger and with fee burn, we could have net zero issuance due to burning more fees than more ETH than is being issued each year. And full layer 2 scalability, I see that happening. Over the next few months, I think people are underestimating how much layer 2 stuff's coming over the next few months. I know Optimism got delayed to July and all that sort of stuff. But, as I've said many times on the Refuel and on Twitter and on my newsletter, Optimism is not the only layer 2 scaling solution. There are so many more out there. And I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but kind of like definitely, I guess like good to keep that in mind, over the coming months. Plenty of stuff going live. So full layer 2 scalability by this time next year is not that far-fetched. Now, if you imagine all of this stuff basically happening by this time next year, what do you imagine ETH's price going to be? If we're still in, a general kind of bull market, general uptrend, and we haven't gone into like one of the brutal crypto bear markets, which could very kind of like, there's a very real possibility that can happen because essentially, doesn't matter how much good news happens during a bear market, the market just doesn't care, right? It definitely will not kind of like price that in until later. So essentially, if we're still in a bull trend and if all of this stuff plays out, which I think it will, then I can't see ETH's price being, anything but like pretty high from where it is now. Not investment advice, but, in general. And I think that's why Eric kind of says, have you adjusted your portfolio accordingly? Because, there's a lot of people that I know that, maybe not you guys like watching and listening, but there's a lot of people that I kind of know that don't have very much ETH exposure because they just like think that ETH is just going to be a stable coin forever and doesn't do anything. Well, ETH is known as the teleport coin for a reason. That's not something that you really see many people say, but I guess it's something that I kind of say a lot. ETH will do like sideways movement for a while, that's fine. But then it'll catch everyone off guard and just like double in a couple of weeks, right? We saw that play out when ETH went from like $700 to $1,400 in like a couple of weeks. We've seen that play out, plenty of times in the past. ETH is not something that, will just continuously go up like every day, right? And there's kind of nothing like that. I think people kind of like look at ETH and then look at all these other assets going up all the time and think to themselves, why isn't ETH going up? Well, you're comparing one asset to like many different assets, right? And not even like Bitcoin goes up all the time either, right? There are periods of time where Bitcoin and ETH are just sideways for pretty much most of the time. It's just sideways movement. And then you have like this kind of explosion up for one reason or another. So I think that's going to play out for sure. And, I think a lot of people are going to be caught off guard by that. But yeah, good tweet from Eric here and basically speaks to, I guess, what I was saying yesterday about all of this. So SushiSwap put out a Q1 update just before. What this goes through is basically everything they achieved during Q1. I'm really loving these kind of avatars that was created for the SushiSwap team here. And there's actually a better view of them kind of down here. It's really cool. This is something different in the ecosystem where you have, a bunch of people basically had caricatures. I can't even say that word. Made out of them, and some of them are anonymous, some of them kind of aren't. Joseph DeLong here, holding the kind of like salmon here. He's not anonymous, right? But a lot of these kind of people are here. So I think that was a really cool way to kind of, I guess, keep their anonymity, but also give them kind of character as well. But yeah. Outside of that, I guess the major updates included team expansion. So they added like all of these people during Q1. So that's a huge amount of people, I think. And as I said, most of them are Anon, right? They've got like Anon profiles and things like that. They bought the sushi.com domain. You might have seen that, or at least, I guess, Future Fund, one of, I guess, like the funds that are a big kind of investor in sushi bought that domain for them. They had their contracts formally verified. They obviously did a bunch of multi-chain deployment, including Ethereum, kind of like, I guess, side chains that are popular, like XDAI and Polygon, and then a bunch of other EVM-compatible chains. As I discussed yesterday, they released BentoBox and Kashi, and they had a bunch of like governance proposals go live, and kind of like the Onzen program was reworked, and I guess they're doing like an airdrop right now for for people. So if you haven't checked this out yet, and I guess you've been participating in sushi governance, you'll get an airdrop here. Let's see, 100 sushi for each eligible foreign participant, and 50 sushi for each sushi hoodie NFT holder. These hoodies, I mean, I saw them the other day. There's only 100 of them, and it released while I was sleeping, because of course it did, right? Everything happens while I'm sleeping, and I missed it. I don't even care about the sushi airdrop. I just wanted the hoodie because it looked so cool. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get it. I still have my yam pants. So I bought some yam pants a while ago, so maybe I'll get a yam airdrop one day from there. But anyway, pretty healthy update here from SushiSwap. They're doing a lot. They're innovating a lot, right? It evolved. I mean, I don't know if people followed kind of like what I was kind of, I guess, my opinion of SushiSwap back when it first came out. I actually kind of hated it at the start. I thought it was like very tasteless, but it's kind of evolved into a much better project now. It has evolved into a project that is differentiating itself from SushiSwap. It's innovating, it's building different things. It's not relying on, I guess, like just copying everything Uniswap is doing. And that's kind of why I came around to it and why I hold Sushi tokens now as well. But obviously, I still hold Uni tokens. I still love Uniswap. But I think they're two very different projects now. So I think there's still a little bit of animosity between the teams, maybe, because of that. But I think, that animosity should be directed towards, the I guess, like, the sushi chef, the original kind of, like, Chef Nomi. They kind of did all this. The new crop of people working on this, and the people that have worked on it since those days have just changed the kind of narrative here, I think. And definitely should be given, the credit where it's due here. So Sigma Prime released a new edition of their Lighthouse ETH2 client. If you run their ETH2 client, definitely recommend going and upgrading to this. You can find it on GitHub, of course. I think Lighthouse and, Prism are the two top clients, so I'm sure some of you are running Lighthouse here. I love these names, Shilly My Pants. I don't know, man. Like, these release names are funny, but yeah. Anyway, what I actually really love about Sigma Prime is that they're an Aussie-based team up in Sydney. I just love the fact that we have Australian representation within ETH2 and also within a lot of DeFi these days. I mean, if you kind of like look at the landscape in DeFi, there's so many Australian-based projects like MStable, which obviously a lot of I'm an investor and advisor to. There's Maple Finance, there's ThoughtChain, there's Synthetics. There's a new one called Handle Finance as well that just raised a seed round. There's plenty of these kind of projects out there that are Australian based, and it's quite cool because we're an island, right? We don't have a big population. We have like 25 million people. We're not really a tech hub, right? In general, we're definitely a finance hub in some respects. But I think just the fact, and we definitely love our gambling too. So I think that might play a part into it. But I've always kind of been wondering, like, why are a lot of Australians kind of like I guess like attracted to this ecosystem, and I think it's just like a confluence of things, right? We definitely have the I guess like background of loving to speculate on things, right, through gambling, but we also have the grit of wanting to kind of like get our name out there, right, and prove that we aren't just like some people stuck on an island doing nothing, right? Because like Australia, for those who don't know, is typically known as like a mining kind of country where we basically make all of our money through exporting kind of like our mining output and services within Australia. Like real estate's huge here. But, we're not really known for our tech and things like that. So it's great to see that we're making a name for ourselves here. And I'm very lucky to be a part of that cohort, right? I still kind of live down here in Australia as well. So yeah, really cool to see this. Go a little bit of a tangent there, but definitely go upgrade your node or your client here if you run the Lighthouse ETH2 client. So Eric put out another interesting tweet here. So what was funny is that May 16th, 2020, Eric put out this tweet where Visa actually put a patent out there to digitize dollars, which showed that they planned to use Ethereum. So Ethereum was referenced here and everything like that. And, not even a year later, maybe 9 months later or 10 months later, we have obviously Visa supporting Ethereum. So you can see how, I guess, this is fast for a big corporation, but it's still slow, right? If something in I guess, like Ethereum took 10 months to be released from, I guess, like when it was first patented, it would be considered a failure unless it was like a massive release. Like I think Uniswap has been probably 10 months in the making, probably more than that. But Uniswap is a massive endeavor, right? And same with ETH2 and stuff like that. I'm talking about I guess features for, or I guess upgrades to different protocols and stuff like that. Like 10 months is an eternity in crypto. But on the flip side, what Visa has done, I'm sure took them a long time because they've got such a large organization. They had to make sure everything was right. They had to get sign off from the right parties. They had to go through the whole press kind of thing and make sure everything was fine. So, I think that's actually a pretty quick turnaround. As Chainlink God says here, pretty quick turnaround and he's impressed. I'm impressed as well by this. Really, really cool to see that they actually kind of, went somewhere with this. It didn't just fall into, I guess, the Visa's R&D department and never got touched again. So, yeah, really, really cool to see this. So DiversiFi put out an awesome Ethereum Layer 2 ecosystem map here. Now, as I've said to you guys, optimism isn't the only game in town. Look at this. If we're just talking about infrastructure, look at the top left. Look how many layer 2 projects are building kind of out there already or coming soon, right? Starkware building a bunch of I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll go through the infrastructure. Starkware is obviously building a lot. They've got DYDX out there in alpha. Immutable X is launching soon. They're powering DiversiFi. So, they've already got stuff out live there already. Hermes Network went live on mainnet last week. Aztec with their Layer 2 privacy stuff went live with V2 a couple weeks ago. Loopring's been live for a while, of course. ZK Sync is live on mainnet, has been used within Gitcoin. Loom, I'm not sure what's happening with Loom these days. They were pretty big back in the day. Some of you may remember Loom. I think it's kind of maybe a dead project at this stage. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I haven't kept up with it. Obviously, we have Optimism there. In private mainnet, so still live, just, obviously public mainnet was delayed. Arbitrum has their mainnet release candidate on the Kovan testnet. They're going to be releasing any day now. 0x Habitat is a new project that I haven't looked into too deeply, but definitely making moves. Polygon right now is working on their layer 2 solutions, but they have, I guess, their Plasma Chain live. Salah Network also doing state channels. Connext is doing bridges between the different layer 2s and cross-chain things. OMG Network is obviously live, doing a bit of USD transfers there. Fuel Labs, I don't know if they're live just yet. I haven't heard much from them lately. And this last logo here, I don't actually know what it is. And for me not to know what something is, that's surprising. And I'm glad, because it means there's much more than, I guess, I thought there was. But yeah, that's really cool on the infrastructure side. Now, obviously, as you can see, there's a lot of, I guess, double ups here. But, the reason why Loopring, I guess, is in the infrastructure side and the swap side and the exchange side is because they fall into all that categories. Loopring built their own ZK rollup. They built their own AMM, so that's why they're in the swap side here. They built their own order book exchange. That's why they're in exchanges. And they also built their own payments layer. That's why they're in payments and transfers. And they also built their own wallet. That's why they're in the wallet section. So if we take all that into account, it's fine that there's kind of doubling up here. But I think just focusing on the infrastructure side of things, you can see how many teams there are. And this is missing things as well, I think. And it's just going to keep growing from here. So really, really cool ecosystem map from DiversiFi, which is building on layer 2 as well. They have an exchange on there. They're doing a lot of good stuff. I've talked about them before. So definitely go check them out if you haven't yet. But yeah, this layer 2 ecosystem, Ethereum's layer 2 ecosystem is more mature and more far along than so many of the, I guess, quote unquote Ethereum killers and other layer 1 ecosystems at this point. So yeah, really, really cool to see that and kind of glad to see that play out there. All right, last thing to talk about here was a tweet that Jacob Franek put out here, where he basically said, reminder, Vitalik coined Ethereum as the Lego of crypto finance in 2014. The white paper calls out DeFi as the first category of applications for Ethereum, but critics will tell you that Ethereum's narratives keep changing. No, you just caught up, sweetheart, which I thought was kind of a funny way to end that tweet. But I wrote about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter today, but I'll kind of like summarize it here. You may hear this all the time, where people say, well, Ethereum's changed its narrative. You know, it was a world computer, now no one calls it a world computer. Or ETH was only meant to be used as gas on the network, you know, now it's more than gas. You know, blah, blah, blah. There's always this kind of narratives that are out there. And to Jacob's point, you know, there's a lot of narratives that took a while to kind of like take off. You know, Vitalik essentially coined DeFi in 2014, or at least like came up with it in 2014. And we didn't really see DeFi kind of take off and find product market fit until like the second half of 2020. Yes, it existed before that, but it really wasn't existing in any kind of large capacity. Now it's like, you know, obviously any, you know, what everyone talks about. And then, you know, obviously the white paper calling out DeFi as a category as well here. Not saying DeFi, but basically calling out the same thing. You know, just speaks to the fact that Ethereum's narrative in that respect hasn't changed. It just took, you know, 6 years or so for the narrative to kind of come into its own, which has nothing to do with the narrative changing. Now, if you want to talk about, I guess, like ETH as an asset, that narrative changing, it has. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, okay, let's discuss kind of like ETH for a second here. So ETH's narrative has changed from just being used as gas on the network, the ETH, the asset, and ETH's monetary policy has changed from we don't really know, to what's called minimum necessary issuance, right? Those two things are critical. If ETH just remained as gas on the network and it was used for nothing else, it wasn't used for staking, it wasn't used for trustless collateral in DeFi, it wasn't used as money, it wasn't used in the NFT economy, if it wasn't used for any of that, ETH's price would be worth basically nothing. You would only need it for gas, so you would buy it, dispose of it, you know, to do transactions on the network, blah, 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 you can kind of like guess the rest there. So, you know, that's a very good thing. Now, if Ethereum's monetary policy didn't change from, we don't really know, to minimum necessary issuance, which actually organically formed from the community, then the Ethereum kind of like network would still be paying 5 ETH per block to miners, where it's paying 2 ETH per block now. So that would be more than a kind of like double from where it is here. I think that would put issuance at like 10% a year, which is extremely high. So that would still be happening. ETH would not be viewed as, I guess like a sound economic asset where it had a known monetary policy, where people kind of like had certainty, or at least relative certainty, to kind of like what ETH was, doing and how ETH was going to be viewed in the future. So there's that as well. And then third, which I think is actually the most important thing, is that ETH's monetary policy would be so prone to capture, it isn't even funny. Because if you think about it, if there is no precedent, right? If the monetary policy is we don't really know, we'll figure it out later, then you can imagine a special interest group or some kind of group coming in and capturing it for themselves, right? And saying, well, you know, ETH doesn't have a defined monetary policy and there's no kind of social contract here. Let's just raise the issuance to like 10 ETH per block. And that could have really happened. That could have been a reality that happened, where the miners basically petitioned for this, and then the ecosystem in general would be like, well, you know, I mean, that makes sense, right? Because there's no social contract here. There's no kind of, things saying that we don't raise the kind of limit. Now, with minimum necessary issuance, we know we don't raise the block reward if it's not necessary to do so, because we only issue as much as is necessary to secure the network. And right now we're overpaying, right? Even if you take out the fees that we're paying miners, I still think we're overpaying for security with block rewards, given how high the ETH price is. So I think that is critically important to remember as well. So those kind of three things there around ETH, I think, is just a very positive narrative change. And, you know, the critics of, I guess, Ethereum and saying that Ethereum's narratives keep changing, they're the same people who, I guess, like, support Bitcoin. And, I mean, I see this from Bitcoin maximalists a lot. And if you really look at Bitcoin, its narrative has changed over time too. Like, pre-2016 Bitcoin, I think you could say, was all about payments, right? It's all about using Bitcoin as money, essentially what became Bitcoin Cash. Now it's all about digital gold. And I'm not going to say what narrative is better and what's not. That's not the point of this. The point is that, like, for the longest time, it was regarded as money. It wasn't regarded as digital gold or a store of value. And, you know, on top of that, in earlier on in Bitcoin's life cycle, it was also regarded as just like a thing to use to kind of like go on darknet markets and buy drugs. Now, obviously, that narrative's completely changed, and not many people say that anymore about Bitcoin, unless you're like totally unaware of what Bitcoin's being used for. So from that perspective, it's kind of like hypocritical to say that Ethereum has changed its narratives when Bitcoin has as well. And I actually think that Bitcoin changing its narrative to what it has is good for Bitcoin. Obviously it is, because it's got over $1 trillion market cap. It has, all this attention and all this sort of stuff, if you're just counting like market cap as a signal here. But Ethereum changing its narrative from world computer to, I guess, like settlement layer, as I spoke about yesterday, to DeFi being like really hot and settling on Ethereum's monetary policy changing to be minimum necessary issuance and emerging organically from the community is incredibly powerful, and is a major reason why I'm extremely comfortable holding ETH, because I know that there is a social contract there that we're just not going to raise issuance. We're not going to do willy-nilly stuff with the monetary policy. People will try to tell you that, at the click of their fingers, Vitalik can change the monetary policy of ETH, and that's not true at all. That couldn't be further from the truth. And, technically 1559 is a monetary policy change, and it took 2 years to get that into the network. So anyone who tells you that it's easy to change the kind of Ethereum's monetary policy or anything got to do with ETH issuance and ETH paid to, I guess, like validators of the network is kind of like lying to you, essentially. So yeah, good tweet from Jacob here. I do like that he kind of ended it with "No, you just caught up, sweetheart," because yeah, this is, I guess, like what I was talking about the other day about information asymmetry and how so many people in this ecosystem are unaware that these things on Ethereum have not been things that have just formed recently. They were formed very early on, but just found kind of, I guess, like product market fit recently, which is very different to Ethereum changing its narrative to suit the product, right? The product basically grew into Ethereum's narratives already. So yeah, really, really cool to look back on that here. All right, that's it for today, everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, join the Discord channel, subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.